Welcome to Backpage Blues. I'm joined by Charlie the Hurricane Skillen from the Mail Online. How are you?
I'm not very well, really. Obviously, long day in Manchester. First thing I did on Monday is go into the Daily Mail's meeting, and there was 10,000 ideas everyone had about how rubbish we were. So it hasn't been the best week. Yeah, all accurate, all absolutely fair enough, but hasn't been the most enjoyable week as a Chelsea fan, as I'm sure you agree.
Yeah, as I'm sure I can empathise with, and I'm sure that all of you can empathise with as well. I think the thing that is troubling a lot of Chelsea fans, we did a Skype chat earlier, and we also had a conversation on Twitter with a lot of fans. People are really worried about this. I don't want to call it a divide, but there's something, isn't there, between Mourinho and John Terry?
Look, I mean, let's not dress this up quite yet as Mourinho and Terry are loggerheads, because they're not. But, you know, it was a real shock to see him taken off at half-time. Obviously, we were both at the game.
I thought he was injured.
That's the first thing everyone thought, everyone talking in the stands, Terry's been taken off, so he must have taken a knock.
Yeah, he's got a knock. Obviously got a knock. Hope he's all right for West Brom.
But then it came out that after the game he said no, he took him off for tactical reasons because he wanted to play a high line, wanted to play with a faster defence. It's since come out, we reported this on Monday, that Terry wasn't meant to be in the team at all. Terry wasn't meant to start that game. In training, in the week leading up to the City game, it was Zuma and Cahill. That decision got reversed late on Friday, and then obviously, Mourinho went back to his original plan.
Okay.
We all know that Terry's coming towards the end of his career.
Let's just remember who he is, though. Let's just remember that we're talking about the man who played every minute of every game of the team that won the league last season. He captained us to a League Cup win, scoring in the final.
Yeah.
This all happened 6 months ago, the Tottenham game. 3 months ago, the lifting of the trophy.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, Manchester City away, probably on paper, it might even be Chelsea's hardest game. The first name I want on that team sheet is John Terry.
Couldn't agree more.
I can't think of a game when I wouldn't start John Terry. The good news is, the word from Terry's camp is that he's, although obviously as he's professional, he is upset at this kind of these developments, but he is going to fight for his place. No one's going to be working harder than Terry in training this week, and he's fighting tooth and nail to get into the team against West Brom.
Week, though, knowing John Terry as you do, I think that is the case every week with him.
I'd agree. It feels bizarre to me that we're talking about this, given the season he had last season, but we all know, and I'm sure we'll get onto it later, that things aren't quite right on planet Chelsea at the minute. Yeah. And, this is just one of a number of ways that things aren't quite going well for Mourinho in particular. He's picking fights left, right and centre at the minute. And this is one that I don't think that any Chelsea fan wants to see him pursue.
Yeah, I completely agree. The thing is with it as well, though, Charlie, I follow John Terry on Instagram. He's one of my favourite people that I follow. He's actually very funny on there. And
as well as me,
yeah. Follow. Second only to Charlie the Hurricane.
Yeah.
But he was the first one back in training. He was back in training early. He was leading by example, as he should as a club captain. But I just can't understand how this has happened so early in the season in such a big game.
No, it's completely nuts. We've seen this a lot where Mourinho kind of makes this kind of big statement. I don't know whether he was trying to make a statement to Abramovich and say, look, we need more players, or we're talking about this rather than Chelsea's bad performance, which is kind of Mourinho's favourite trick. But I don't like it manifesting itself in this way. You're right, Terry did come back early. He did the same before such a great season last season.
Yeah.
So it does feel a little bit odd to be talking about this. I don't expect this to be something we're going to be talking about in 2 weeks' time. I hope not.
Do you think it's a message to the board? Because Mourinho actually has form with this. He did it years ago. Do you remember when we went away to Anfield and Mourinho was in a debate with the board trying to get hold of another centre-half? If I remember rightly, it was Tal Ben Haim who Mourinho was chasing.
God knows why.
And as a result of the board not sanctioning that move, Mourinho played Paulo Ferreira and Michael Essien centre-halves.
Yeah, it didn't go very well either, did it?
No, it went very badly, with Jermaine Pennant scoring a blinder.
Of all people. It's...
Is it a message? Has he taken Terry off and played and got battered against City in order to say, now go and get me John Stones?
Well, look, I mean, if that is the case, and there's certainly people out there who do think that, as a fan, I certainly wanted to be seeing to try and claw it back from 1-0 rather than try and make some sort of statement about the state of the club or whatever. It's very difficult to analyse Mourinho at the minute. He is clearly not happy, and no matter, I know a lot of people have been saying, criticising the media about, the Eva Canario story, but it all adds up. Mourinho is not happy at the minute. He's falling out with a lot of people at the club. I don't think for 1 minute that we're going to be sitting here in 2 weeks looking for a new manager. But all is not right at Chelsea at the minute, that's for certain.
Absolutely. And more on the people being unhappy, Branislav Ivanovic, my mate, isn't in the best frame of mind.
Well, look, I mean, there's been lots of talk about him these first 2 games, and admittedly he has been very, very poor. I think one thing you could put it down to is, another kind of fraction in the camp, if you like, is that Ivanovic isn't happy with the deal he's been offered. Obviously, Chelsea got this policy where they only offer players over 30 a 1-year deal. He feels that he deserves more. I'd be inclined to agree. So he's not happy with that. There's also a situation between Mourinho and Diego Costa at the minute about the management of his injury. Obviously, that goes back to the medical staff as well. If there is a silver lining to all of this stuff,
please, I'm looking forward to hearing this.
And I think that a lot of fans have been asking me on Twitter, as I'm sure they have you, is that Chelsea will now buy. I mean, we've been sitting here for weeks talking. I've got Begovic and Falcao and get Babaram and we'll probably get John Stones. It now looks like Chelsea will buy maybe 3 players before the end of the window.
Would you put that down to? Would that now be classed as panic buying?
It's definitely a word for it. I think Mourinho's been trying to convince the board that he needs reinforcements in certain areas. Those areas being in attack,
it's obvious.
in central
midfield,
in central midfield, and now Mourinho is absolutely obsessed with signing John Stones. He's really, this is not adding to his mood at all. He's really frustrated that the Stones deal hasn't got over the line. Chelsea have had a £30 million bid rejected. It's now going to take about 35 million. Now, interesting enough, the Chelsea board actually thinks Stones is a little bit overpriced.
He is overpriced, but that's the price, isn't it? It's irrelevant.
I always
Ferraris are overpriced, but that's how much they cost. So you can have one or you can't have one. Pay the money or don't pay the money. That's what it costs.
Precisely. See a lot of things on Twitter like this week saying like, oh well, I'd pay 30 for Stones, I wouldn't pay 32. It doesn't really matter because very rarely is that money paid up front anyway. And you're right, it's just the price to get him out of Everton. It doesn't mean that he's now a better player than Diego Costa or Alexis Sanchez or whatever. It's just the price that Everton are kind of almost holding Chelsea to ransom over, and quite right too. He's Everton's prized asset. If this was Everton Fans TV, I'd be sitting here.
Hold on to him, get the most money.
Saying get the most money possible, and that's their right.
The trouble is, though, we've boxed ourselves into a corner because the performance against Manchester City was so desperate that Everton can now look at that and go, do you know what? If they need somebody, they need a centre half. They're going to have to pay double for it now.
Well, exactly. I think Stones will get over the line. This is the way Chelsea works now. I mean, in Mourinho's first spell, it was not what he said goes, but he would be the primary person identifying people and making things happen, and money kind of wasn't really an object. It's a much different playing field now. He has to kind of appeal to the board for players that he wants. He's been trying to convince the board that they need strengthening in certain departments. I'd certainly sympathise with him on that. Looks like we're getting an attacker and a central midfielder certainly, which I think we desperately need. And like I said, he is really hot on getting John Stones, no matter how much the cost.
Well, that is great news, and let's get Stones signed up as soon as possible, and a couple of others potentially.
Yeah, it could be.
Lovely stuff. This has been a very flat Backpage Blues.
Sorry about that.
Coming off the back of such a trouncing against Manchester City at Easterns, it's obviously not going to be the most uplifting. But part 2 is my favourite part of the week, so be sure to tune in where we will get through as many of your questions as possible, and please comment below. Let us know what you think of what you've just heard. Remember, we're champions, they're not. First question, Zach Hanif. Zach, thank you very much for your question and wonderful avatar. Absolutely. Is it too early in the new season to feel slightly concerned about Chelsea's performances? What are the reasons behind these performances?